And so begins a new era for Zimbabwe, the breadbasket of Africa, a country blessed with mineral wealth, productive farmland and rich biodiversity. Its people are impatient to cast off a history of repression and forge their own future. This is in fact a description of Zimbabwe in 1980. It was the moment in history when a man, seen as both an African liberation hero and a terrorist Marxist, emerged from a lengthy guerrilla war against white minority rule to lead his country to independence. In the following 37 years, Robert Mugabe not only squandered his country's potential, he crushed it along with the hope of his people. 4 decades of corruption and misrule transformed Zimbabwe from one of Africa's richest countries to one of its poorest, to the point where it can be rightfully called a failed state. Up until he was forced to go, Mugabe's people felt betrayed and were made to feel as worthless as their currency. Zimbabwe became a country of billionaires who could afford nothing, if only there was anything of value to buy. Over the years Zimbabweans accumulated misery. Crisis upon crisis was heaped on the country. Teachers were not paid and the education system, once regarded among the best in Africa, collapsed. Basic infrastructure was not maintained and disintegrated. The sewage and water systems ceased, triggering a cholera epidemic. The health system could cope as most qualified doctors had long left the country. By 1997 a quarter of the population had been infected by HIV/AIDS virus. It would be difficult to count just how many Zimbabweans have been killed by negligence. But then there was willful killing on a mass scale. In the early 80s, Mugabe orchestrated a campaign of terror against the Ndebele people in Matabeleland in western Zimbabwe. It's believed more than 20,000 civilians were killed as part of an ongoing strategy to remove all political opposition. Seemingly emboldened, Mugabe unleashed his personal militia, the war veterans, backed by the security forces, who used violence and murder to terrorize his political opponents and maintain electoral supremacy. Despite Mugabe's departure, the fear will remain for many Zimbabweans. His likely successor Emmerson Mnangagwa is regarded as the mastermind of the Matabeleland massacres. He is known to provoke more terror in the country than Mugabe, who appointed Mnangagwa as the head of the Central Intelligence Organization. Under his watch the CIO developed a reputation for torturing people as well as making them disappear. Yet much hope lies in the former vice president whom Mugabe sacked, unwittingly triggering his own downfall. Mnangagwa reportedly understands the need to end decades of economic mismanagement under Mugabe and support business reforms that may well encourage foreign investment and a restoration of a fully functioning market economy. It's also reported that Mnangagwa wants to mend relations with white farmers to help revive the agricultural industry. Agricultural exports helped drive Zimbabwe's economy late last century, but that was when whites owned 70% of the arable land but made up less than 1% of the population. From 2000 Mugabe encouraged the violent seizure of white-owned farms.